This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Zhao Wenjuan explained from the stage, not only can this bowl be used for eating, but it is also an extremely powerful array tool. It also has two main functions. One, it can take away the profound level weapons and treasures from the other party. The second, it can form a defensive formation that even a high-level martial sovereign would find hard to break through. Damn, if it's not an offensive weapon, what's the use of it? Don't tell me you're going to take this bowl all day to snatch other people's treasures? Didn't Mr. Wenjuan say that this bowl can also be used for eating? Many members of the Sea tribe expressed their dissatisfaction, as if they were extremely disappointed with this profound level weapon. After all, everyone was very excited about the final three treasures. The sea race's way of thinking was somewhat different from humans. In their eyes, offensive profound level weapons were the best, followed by defensive profound level weapons. As for this kind of array weapon, they were not even in their eyes. Yunxiao, on the other hand, swallowed hard. Only he knew how powerful the white rice was. This legendary mystic artifact could directly sense the treasures of heaven and earth and mystic artifacts full of spirit energy, and then absorb them from a distance. This was simply an unimaginable heaven-defying divine skill. In his previous life, he had also looked up some information on this array tool to understand it. It seemed to have a great relationship with its material, making it difficult to refine a second one. Zhao Wenjuan ignored everyone's dissatisfaction and ridicule and said, "This treasure belongs to my Xiankong Island, and it is one of the highest quality treasures. You all only need to take out an item of equivalent value to me to exchange for it. Mr. Wenjuan, you should keep this bowl for yourself." A member of the Sea tribe couldn't help but mock. "Whoever wants to exchange, hurry up and exchange. Show me the next treasure." The other one was also dissatisfied. There were also people who knew what was good in the Sea tribe. A fat Sea tribe member flew up to the stage, took out a big red stone, and put it on the stage. With a hong sound, more than half of the stone directly caved in. "This dragon blood stone in exchange for plain white rice, what do you think, Mr. Wenjuan?" the chubby marine race member asked. "What? That's a dragon blood stone?" The crowd below immediately burst into an uproar, and everyone stood up in horror. Such a large piece of dragon's bloodstone was probably all the blood of a dead dragon. Run Xiang's face darkened, and his eyes were cold, looking extremely uncomfortable. Yunxiao glanced at the dragon's bloodstone and shook his head. Then, he looked at Ruinxiang and said teasingly, "The purity of the dragon bloodstone's blood isn't even as high as your blood. If brother Run Xiang is willing to let out some blood, you'll be rich." Humph. Run Xiang snorted coldly, his face ashen, and he did not say anything else. However, dragon's blood was extremely precious to the sea race. It was almost equivalent to an extremely powerful heavenly treasure that could increase one's strength. Back then, on the coast of the East Sea, Run Xiang's blood had crystallized and fallen into the sea. Countless marine creatures fought over it for food, and they all underwent a series of mutations, becoming extremely fierce existences. Such a large piece of dragon bloodstone made everyone drool with envy. Is that really a dragon bloodstone? How could there be such a stupid person who would exchange such a precious treasure for such trash? Are you willing to sell the dragon bloodstone? I have a 9th tier profound armament in my hands, I am willing to exchange for it. I have a 9th tier intermediate level profound armament here, I'm willing to exchange. The crowd below the stage began to clamor, all of them rushing towards the dragon bloodstone. Zhao Wenjuan placed his hands behind his back and shouted, "Everyone, be quiet." He said to the chubby member of the Sea tribe, "This dragon's bloodstone is indeed extremely valuable. Not only is it heavy, but it also contains the essence of an earth dragon. But it's a pity that it's just an earth dragon." He shook his head, expressing his regret over the quality of the blood. The rotund Sea tribe member's face sank and he said with an ashen face, "Even if it's an earth dragon, it's still an extremely rare item. Is it not enough to exchange for this white rice?" Zhao Wenjuan lightly shook his head and spat out 3 words, "It's not enough." The rotund faces of the members of the sea tribe became extremely unsightly, and the audience below the stage was also in an uproar, as if they couldn't believe it. Mr. Wenjuan, what do you want to exchange your white rice for? I'll exchange with you. Many people were clamoring, hoping to exchange for the dragon bloodstone through the white rice. There were also some people who muttered, "Don't tell me they're working together to trick us into exchanging for the white rice? Once that broken bowl is in my hands, I won't even exchange the dragon bloodstone in that round ball's hands." Some other members of the sea tribe had a look of realization on their faces. They nodded and said, "It must be so, it must be so." Yunxiao shook his head. Zhao Wenjuan was also a 9th-tier alchemist like him, so he naturally understood the value of this white rice. It was likely that this item would not be sold. Perhaps the other party did not want to sell it at all, but just put it on display. He pondered for a while and felt a little unwilling. He immediately turned into a ray of light and flew up the stage. Zhao Wenjuan looked at him with a smile and said, "Young Master Yunxiao is also going to make a move? Wenjuan is looking forward to it. I wonder what kind of treasure young master will take out." Yunxiao had many things more precious than the white rice, but each of them was a supreme treasure with irreplaceable effects. He took out a jade scroll and threw it over, saying, "I'm using this technique to exchange for plain white rice. I wonder if Mr. Wenjuan thinks it's worth it." "Oh." Zhao Wenjuan took the jade slip and his face revealed extreme curiosity. He smiled and said, looking at young Master Yunxiao's confident face, "Wenjuan is really curious. Although there are many cultivation techniques in the world, the ones that can be exchanged for plain white rice are really limited. Let's talk after you have a look," Yunxiao said indifferently. Zhao Wenjuan nodded and placed the jade slip on his forehead. Ah. 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 Zhao Wenjuan had only swept it with his spiritual sense, but he had already spat out 3 words. Each one was more shocked than the last, as if he could not believe it. Bai Mingkongtian's eyes suddenly burst with a bright light and burst out with boundless anger. He seemed to have guessed what Yunxiao had given him, and his face was so dark that it was almost dripping with water. Everyone in the field revealed a curious expression. It was very difficult for them to imagine what kind of thing could be more precious than a 9th-tier profound armament, more precious than that large piece of dragon's bloodstone. Zhao Wenjuan's hand, which was holding the jade slip, was trembling. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He said with a trembling voice, This thing is real?" His reaction was completely within Yunxiao's expectations. With Mr. Wenjuan's appraisal ability, can't you tell whether it's real or fake? I've placed restrictions on the key points of each style, but it doesn't hinder Mr. Wenjuan's appraisal. Gulp. The sound of Zhao Wenjuan swallowing could be clearly heard. Everyone in the arena wanted to fly up and see what it was. As the saying went, curiosity killed the cat. The more Zhao Wenjuan's expression fluctuated, the more they felt an unbearable itch in their hearts. They all became restless, wanting to know the situation. What Yunxiao had given him was indeed the tyrant body tempering technique. In any case, it was an incomplete technique, and he had already embarked on the path to open the heavenly gate, so he had no use for it. In addition, the Baiming family had already given it to him. He didn't mind giving it to a few more people. Moreover, it was worth it to exchange it for a top-grade array tool like white rice. Now, the most difficult thing was to summon Wenjuan. Just as Yunxiao had guessed, he had shown the white rice to show off the collection of Xiankong Island, and had no intention of exchanging it. But now, with a bitter smile, he held the jade slip and said, "Young Master Yunxiao, this matter has already exceeded my control. I must ask the first island master's opinion." "It's all right." Yunxiao smiled. "It's fine." Zhao Wenjuan immediately transmitted his voice to Guang Yuan. His lips moved slightly, but no one knew what he was saying. In order to prevent people from eavesdropping, not only was there a restriction on the voice transmission, but it was also in a secret language. This made everyone's hearts itch even more, almost wanting to dig out their hearts to scratch the itch. Zhao Wenjuan then appeared to be listening carefully. His expression changed several times before he finally nodded gently. He came back to his senses and said to Yunxiao, "The first island master said we can exchange." Voila! Below them, a huge commotion broke out. What kind of cultivation technique had been used to exchange for something that such a large piece of dragon bloodstone couldn't even be exchanged for? The rotund member of the Sea Tribe said angrily, "Mr. Wenzhan, you're too unconvinced. What did he take out that could be more valuable than my dragon bloodstone?" "That's right, we must announce what it is." The people below also started to shout, all revealing looks of extreme anticipation. Only Baiming Lifeng's face was unsightly, and his eyes flickered with killing intent. Zhao Wenzhan shouted, "The treasure exhibition is only an exchange of treasures. There is no obligation to share the items that have been exchanged. Be quiet." As soon as he finished speaking, powerful auras came from all directions. They were the guards of the dazzling treasure meet, who were responsible for maintaining order. This made everyone shut their mouths, but they still revealed extremely dissatisfied expressions. Zhao Wenzhan could not be bothered with the crowd as he turned to Yunxiao and said, "Young Master Yunxiao, there's a restriction in here." "Understood," Yunxiao said with a smile. He also used the secret sound transmission technique and directly passed on the method of unsealing. Zhao Wenzhan hurriedly scanned the jade slip with his spiritual sense and used a secret technique to unseal the restrictions. His face constantly showed excitement and ecstasy, and his body could not help but become excited. It's true, it's true. When the last restriction was released, Zhao Wenzhan finally laughed and said, "No wonder young Master Yunxiao is so powerful. It turns out that you have such a peerless magical power." Yunxiao smiled indifferently and did not explain. He checked the white rice and found that it was indeed the legendary item. Then, he returned to his seat with satisfaction. Shui Xian's curiosity was also piqued, and she could not help but ask, "What kind of cultivation technique did you give him?" Yunxiao leaned over and said in a low voice, "It's just a body refining technique." Shui Xian nodded with a look of realization, but her face blushed. Just now, when Yunxiao whispered in her ear and breathed directly into her face, she had a strange feeling that she had never felt before, and she felt extremely embarrassed. However, under this shyness, there was a little sweetness and happiness that she could not explain. Shui Xian lowered her head and laughed shyly. She fiddled with the corners of her clothes with her hands, looking like a little girl. Yunxiao had only told her a secret that no one else in the hall knew. She immediately felt a joy of sharing a little secret that only belonged to the two of them. "Princess Shui Xian, is it because the venue is too hot?" Yunxiao asked in surprise. "Why is your face so red?" Shui Xian's red face immediately turned purple like an eggplant. Her eyes were filled with anger and killing intent. She bit her lips so hard that they almost bled. She gritted her teeth and said, "I'll kill you." Baiming Lifeng had also been paying attention to Yunxiao. He was not an innocent young man, and as soon as he saw Shui Xian's appearance, he immediately understood what was going on. His face turned pale as he stared at Yunxiao with hatred. Next up is the second finale item of this auction. After Zhao Wenzhan's excitement, he could not calm down for a long time. With extreme joy, he introduced, "Everyone, please take a look." He lifted the red cloth on the clam girl's tray behind him. This time, it was a conch. This conch horn was actually made up of 9 colors, and a halo constantly rose from it, extremely gorgeous. It was even bigger than an ordinary conch. The eyes of the clam girl, who was holding the plate, gradually became unfocused as she looked at the 9-colored light. The Sea Tribe members in the surroundings carefully looked at the conch, but it seemed that no one could recognize what it was. Some people felt that they had an impression of it, but they couldn't recall it for a while. Arg! Look at that clam girl! All of a sudden, a member of the Sea Tribe cried out in alarm. Everyone was shocked to find that the clam girl had turned into a fossil without them knowing. This, I remember now. Heavens! It's a 9-colored sky conch. A member of the Sea Tribe suddenly cried out. His voice was filled with endless fear. Ah! The entire place was in an uproar. This name was like a curse. Suddenly, everyone's face turned pale, and they all showed fear. Even Shui Xian, Run Xiang, and Fei Ming's expressions changed drastically. They revealed looks of disbelief and shock. Zhao Wenjuan laughed lightly and said, I didn't think that there would be a friend who would recognize this item. However, this is a conch name made from a 9-colored sky conch. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Now, there were no more doubts, and each and every one of them broke out in cold sweat. Wasn't the 9-colored sky conch clan exterminated by the Great Poseidon several generations ago? How can it still exist? This is just a specimen, didn't you hear that it's a conch? It's just that this is the only conch that's made of this kind of thing. This is crazy. It's actually a conch name made from an S-grade 9-colored sky conch of the sea tribe. The 9-colored sky conch was once a nightmarish race in the sea. It was definitely an S-class existence. They were born in the West Sea and ran amok without fear. More than 1,000 years ago, they were besieged by the West Sea's royal clan, which led to their counterattack and forced them to flee. It was only after the Ocean Emperor of that generation came forward that they were completely wiped out. This race had an extremely powerful innate divine ability that could attack with sound waves over a large area and turn people into fossils. Even without the power of sound waves, he could use the 9-colored light to petrify people. It was a heaven-defying ability. Ever since the Ocean Emperor led a team to exterminate them more than 1,000 years ago, there had been no news of this race. The small conch on display should be an infant of the 9-colored sky conch tribe. Zhao Wenjuan laughed smugly. This is a specimen from the 9-colored sky conch race. Everyone has seen it. Their own petrifying divine power is still there. Everyone should know the value of this item. The clam girl had completely turned into a fossil without a trace of vitality. She still had a faint smile on her face and her hands were still holding the plate. Finally, many members of the sea tribe calmed down. One of them shouted, "How do you want to exchange for this?" Zhao Wenjuan laughed. Old rules. If there's anything that can satisfy me, I'll take it. This is too much of a scam. Who can take out something comparable to the 9-colored sky conch? Someone immediately shouted. Even if they have something, they wouldn't be willing to exchange it. Zhao Wenjuan looked at the crowd and smiled. From what I know, there are many powerful people from large clans participating this time. The wealth of the Eastern Sea is uncountable. Wenjuan also hopes that everyone can bring out some good things to broaden your horizons. For a moment, there was silence. Everyone stared at the 9-colored sky conch fanatically, but most of them were poor. Who could exchange for this thing? In a corner, several similar-looking experts of the Sea Clan were discussing in low voices. All of them had a serious look on their faces. In a few breaths, they seemed to have come to an agreement. The leader turned into a ray of light and landed on the stage. Zhao Wenjuan laughed. If I'm not wrong, this must be an expert from the Waterdrop clan. Mr. Wenjuan, you really have a good eye. The man's expression changed. Seeing this person admit it, there was a commotion below, and everyone revealed shocked expressions. What? The Water Droplet clan? They are an extremely secretive race, but they actually came to participate in the treasure show. This is the famous Class C clan. It's one of the top class clans in the entire Eastern Sea. But it's no wonder. Even a wondrous item like the 9-colored sky conch appeared in this place. It wouldn't be strange for an S-class race to come. There were all sorts of discussions below. Everyone used their gazes to size up those few water drop race people. Those few people's expressions didn't change, and they just sat there calmly. Zhao Wenjuan laughed. I wonder what this friend has brought. Can I have an eye-opener? The man took out a piece of metal and handed it over, saying, "How's this?" Zhao Wenjuan took it and looked at it carefully. His expression changed and he said in shock, This. That's it. It's the only thing I can think of that's comparable to the 9-colored sky conch, the man said with a smile. Zhao Wenjuan held the metal piece in his hand and looked at it a few times. He sighed and said, in terms of value, it can indeed be compared to the 9-colored conch, but the 9-colored conch is extinct. There might be more in the four seas, but it's extremely difficult to find a second one. He returned the metal piece and said, I'm sorry. That water droplet clansman's expression changed and anger flashed through his eyes. After pondering for a while, he angrily snorted and took back the metal piece. Everyone's appetites were whetted to their full, each and every one of them revealing a resentful expression. After that, another person flew onto the stage, and everyone's eyes focused on him. The man spread open his hand and waved it in front of him, immediately producing 8 storage pouches in the air. Mr. Wenjian, take a look at the things inside. Is there anything that can be exchanged for this? The person said. Zhao Wenjian nodded and his spiritual sense began to sweep over the storage bags. He seemed to be scanning through it very quickly. When he reached the 8th storage bag, his face suddenly revealed a look of surprise. However, he quickly returned to normal and finished browsing. He smiled and said, these 8 bags of holding are all rare items, but it's very difficult to exchange for this conch. The man seemed to have expected this and said, what if these 8 storage belts are combined? Zhao Wenjian was startled and his face revealed surprise. Do you really intend to use these 8 storage bags to exchange for it? Although there's nothing that can be compared to the conch horn, the total value of all of them is difficult to estimate, especially the items in the 8th storage pouch. They're not much inferior to the 9-colored sky conch. The man glanced at the 9-colored sky conch and said through gritted teeth, I've changed. Zhao Wen hesitated slightly and nodded. All right, I can make the decision for this deal. He made a grabbing motion in the air and the 8 storage bags fell into his hands one after another. Thank you. The man was ecstatic. He hurriedly stepped forward and grabbed the conch horn. He played with it in his hand for a while before putting it away. It turned into a ray of light and flew back to his seat. Everyone revealed stunned expressions. They had thought that such a precious treasure would definitely cause an intense fight, but they had not expected it to be so easily taken over. You really can't judge a book by its cover. That person was small and thin, with grayish-white skin. He was not eye-catching in the entire hall, but at this moment, he had gathered everyone's curious eyes, among which there was no lack of greed and ferocity. The few water drop race experts in particular had extremely complicated expressions as they constantly sized up the ashen white man. Zhao Wenjian revealed a mysterious smile and slowly said, the last item will be auctioned by the first island master of Xiankong Island. What? The first island master of Xiankong Island. Everyone was shocked. Ever since Xiankong Island was established in the Eastern Sea, everything was managed by the 5th island master, Zhao Wenjian. The other few were rarely seen. As for the first island master, he was even more of a mystery. No one had ever heard of him in person. Previously, Yunxiao had forced the first island master's projection to show up by using a chicken feather as a token, but no one could see his face clearly. 3 rays of light suddenly flew in from outside the dazzling treasure hall. They spun in the air and finally landed on the display stage one by one. The 2nd island master, Bin Chen. 3rd island master, Lang Yu. The 4th island master, Jiu Tian. The 3 rays of light immediately turned into 3 people and introduced themselves. Everyone looked at the 3 of them with strange expressions. Many people also recognized Jiu Tian, who was the one who had fought with Yunxiao. Zhao Wenjian laughed, the 5th island master Zhao Wenjian. The 4 of them retreated to the side and shouted in unison, welcome, first island master. His voice reverberated in the air, not only in the hall, but also across the island, so everyone could hear him clearly. The sky above the stage suddenly brightened. A ray of light fell like the moonlight, and there seemed to be a faint sign of a fairy flying in the sky. There was also a soft chanting. Boom. All of a sudden, the entire hall trembled, as if a force was coming from the depths of the Xiankong Island, triggering the earth veins. Everyone's expression changed drastically. Many experts felt that things weren't as simple as they thought, and their faces became grave. Island lords, there's no need to be so polite. A vigorous voice rang out, and then a figure appeared within the light, slowly becoming more solid. A middle-aged man with a pale face and scholarly appearance slowly walked out of the light with his hands behind his back and a smile on his face. "Greetings, First Island Master," the 4 island masters said respectfully at the same time. "There's no need to be so polite, thank you for your hard work," Guan Yuan said with a smile.